Welcome to WTF, WesBank Talks Finance, the podcast that turns WTF moments into knowledge that you can use to make informed financial decisions. Subscribe to get notifications when we release new episodes. Hi, my name is Lebogang Khawaketse and I look after marketing and comms for WesBank. Today we are talking total cost of ownership. So welcome. And my guests in studio today, I've got Rudolph Mahoney, who is in the business development department at WesBank. And I've got Matthew Kenaya, who is a motoring content specialist. Welcome to the both of you, James.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Oh, good. So I'm excited. Let's picture this. I'm excited. I'm about to buy my car. I'm going to a dealership and all of those things. Let's say I've done my research, right? What are the things that I need to be mindful of as a first-time car buyer in as far as the cost of owning a car is concerned? Rudolph, I'm going to start with you.
Well, Lebs, I think, of course, most importantly, it's the cost of your monthly repayments. Fortunately, WesBank, we've got a range of valuable calculators on our website where you can input the price of the car, the term that you want to finance the deal over, etc. And we can help you work out what your monthly repayments would be. But of course, that's not the only part that you need to budget for when you buy a car. There's also insurance, price of fuel, and maintenance for the car. So there's a whole host of other costs that goes along with the car that you need to be mindful of.
And Matthew, do you want to maybe take on that? What are the other things that one needs to be mindful of? You do create content in the space. I'm sure you're exposed to quite a lot of it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very exciting time for when consumers want to buy themselves a car. It's a new step. It's a new venture. I think what you mentioned as well is really cool. You have to keep in mind a budget, but in your budget, there's also needs. So you also have to look at the practicality of the car. Are you looking for something big, small? What is it going to cater for your day-to-day? And that really narrows down your options because we have many aspects where people say, this is how much money I have, what can I get? But it's not narrowed down to, I stay on a gravel road, I need something fuel efficient, I need an SUV, I just need a two-door. So it's always good to sit down and with a budget in mind and with finance, you want to say to yourself, I've got this much money, this is what I want to look forward to paying for, and you can use the WesBank calculator to get like a predetermined amount. This is what you're totally paying for the car, and on top of that, does the car come with the service and maintenance plan? Because with some cars that are slightly cheaper, it is an option to pay for. Luckily in South Africa, most manufacturers have them as a value add. But even if we look at used car market, there are certain manufacturers from Europe that, if the car is 10 years or let's say less, you can extend the motor plan and service plan for a certain period, which guarantees you to be looked after from a service and maintenance point of view. So for a consumer, that's also something that can be added to the total cost of the value of the car. So it's not just like a final amount, but that's also something that the dealer can work into the deal, or the finance house can also work into that. So if something does go wrong, they can take it back to the dealership, they can plug in the computer, and they can tell you specifically what's wrong with the car. Whereas if a car doesn't sort of have that, you have to take it to a mechanic, or you have to take it to a reputable person who repairs it, and then from there, they've got to diagnose and figure it out. But then at the same time, some people don't know what's going on with the car. They have to figure out and say, my car's just making a noise. Whereas, if it's all covered, sometimes when you take in your car, they'll pick up something else that's wrong. And then in that sort of cost, it's replaced for you, and it's like a preventative measure.
Okay, that's great to know. What other costs does one have to be mindful of, Rudolph, when you get on the road, for instance?
Level, maybe just taking one or two steps back. I think before you even get to buying the car, one needs to be mindful of what is the application of the car that you want to buy. Are you buying a car? Is it a tool that you use for work purposes? Or are you most of us or many of us working post COVID, you work from home, so you're not doing high mileage versus someone who maybe being a sales executive would do high mileage, and that should help frame you in terms of what type of car you would need to buy, whether it be a new car or a used car. Of course, if you're going to do high mileage, it's obviously better buying a new car. Although doing low mileage is a used car, and maybe an extended maintenance plan or a service plan would be more favorable to that person. It also affects all of the other costs that's associated to owning and driving a car. For example, if you are using a car for work purposes, you need to insure the car for work purposes, and then you would be charged a high premium by your insurance company.
But I thought insurance is just insurance.
Not quite, not always. They're not all the same. So whereas, and some insurance companies actually have special deals for people that do very low mileage. They just charge you for the utility of the car and for driving less. So you're actually incentivized for driving less with your car. Not everybody has that, but there are certain companies that offer that to the consumer. And then, of course, with that, the fuel consumption plays a big role. If you do high mileage, you would probably favor a car that consumes lower or less fuel. Whereas, probably working from home, it might not be as a big impact on you. And then also, choosing a petrol car versus a diesel car impacts your fuel consumption. Not just fuel consumption, but also maintenance. A diesel car is sometimes a little bit more expensive to maintain, and then definitely would favor someone taking an extended service plan or a maintenance plan in those options. So I guess it has to be quite a calculated and thought through process when you decide on buying a car, and you need to think about all of these factors.
And what about, you spoke about a diesel versus a petrol car. Is that type of car itself, in as far as manual versus automatic, is that also a factor? Is there a difference? Does it really make a difference to the total cost of ownership?
Automatic means you've got everything that's done for you by the car, which means there's less pressure on the clutch and sort of the wear of the pedals and all those things. Whereas with the manual car, you're riding your car with the clutch in traffic. So you're sitting in a traffic situation, you're always riding it in the morning and going home, and you're putting it in first gear and you stall it. It's not something that we always think about, but generally an automatic car does have a much lower cost in terms of that. And also in terms of consumption, you have to rev your car to get it up into the right gear, then you pull off. Whereas with the automatic car, it's already engaged in gears. You just have to tap on the accelerator and it kind of just moves on. So in my opinion, from working in that sort of space, an automatic car has somewhat overtaken a manual car in terms of cost of ownership and maintenance, just because the automatic process of a car becomes a lot more easier for consumer, but at the same time there's less wear on the car and there's less factor for something to go wrong. So that's why I always prefer to find a car that's 10 years or less, so that for anyone who just wants peace of mind to get to work to A and B, whether it's manual, automatic or diesel or petrol, just to have that, because the small things are taken care of and it's less cost to you at the end of the day.
If I'm a car lover and I'm sentimental about a specific car, it could be for many reasons. That they don't make those cars anymore. It was a hand down from my grandfather or my father, whatever the case may be, and I want to keep this car way beyond this extended maintenance and warranty and service plan. What then, Matthew?
I always tell people, look for the support. So do they have a dealership? Do they have a warehouse where they've got spare parts? And can you get off-the-shelf parts through other dealerships that sell or spare part shops that sell the parts? So if you have an older car, or how do they call it, pre-loved car, a car that's older than 10 years, it's really great because there's so much support for it. So, for example, some of the German manufacturers, they support cars that are 20, 30 years old. So you can go to the dealership and they've got a heritage catalog. And you can say, hey, this is my VIN number of the car. I'm looking for this specific part. And what they can do for you is they can either order it in and the cost is to the dealer, or they've got it in their warehouse and you can pretty much replace the part that you think didn't exist. So a lot of manufacturers now are seeing that people are keeping their cars and they're keeping a catalog of it, which means that you can extend the life and replace parts on your older car so that you won't have to have a car that doesn't have any support for it.
And from a cost point of view, what does that mean? Are these old cars with old parts that are difficult to get, not more costly
not necessarily. From I've got a few classic cars and I found that the parts are more or less the same as new car parts. In fact, new car parts are slightly more expensive when you buy it that's not in a service or maintenance plan, because the older technology means that it was simply made. The materials made were also cost effective, whereas newer cars, they've got so much technology. They've got microchips, they've got special glass and panels in them that, it's specifically made. And we know with situations around the world where there's conflict, in most cases manufacturers can't get their parts from there, so it's got to be sourced from somewhere else. Whereas a classic car, it's a plastic mold, it's a metal mold, it's one or two things, and there is definitely support. But in all honesty, the cost is more or less the same, unless specifically it's a specialized car or very high performance car.
You're touching on something quite interesting there, Rudolph, and I'm gonna feel this one to you. So if I wanna be the cool kid around the block, get this car and pimp it up and get tires and a sound bar and all of these nice things that I wanna add to it in terms of cost of ownership.
Well, things like sound and all of these sort of things, they are not necessarily financeable within the transaction. Sometimes we do finance those depending on the age of the car, but the advice would always be to save up some money and to put that in on a cash basis, so that you don't pay interest over a period of time on those sort of accessories that you want to fit. Of course, if it is supplied by a dealer or a manufacturer, then by all means it would add value to the car if you were to finance it. But these aftermarket things, I would always recommend that you pay cash for those,
so that they're not part of your bigger amount that you owe. They're not part of your
it's not so they're not part of the capital balance that you end up financing on the car. I think I just wanted to touch on something else that Matthew said about financing older cars and maintaining older cars. Often we find that once a car goes out of its warranty or its service plan, that customers end up skipping some of the services, and they don't maintain the service record of the car. And there's two very important aspects with that. One is a car that has a full service record. You can trade that car in easier once you want to change your car in the future. But also you would get a better return if you were to trade that car in if it has a full service record. So it's got long-term implications how and when you service your car, and to always make sure that you maintain your car service record. The second thing is once the car gets really old, it's having a frequent service record of your car prevents big issues in the future. So you spend a little bit once a year maybe servicing the car than waiting for something significant to go wrong, and then you have a massive expense. So two important aspects to maintaining an older car.
Sure. Again, as a first-time car buyer, how do I get myself knowledgeable about all of these things?
I always tell people that YouTube and Google is the guru, because quite often we find all the answers are right in front of us. And also I think as consumers, we're quite afraid to ask the questions because we're always afraid that we're going to get shut down. So even if you're not comfortable with finding out information on the internet, you can go to a dealer and you can go to the service department and you can say, I've got this car, or I'm looking at this car. Would you mind just telling me what a basic service kit costs? Or what are the things on the internet? So you find a car, for example, that's old, and you can search up saying, what are the common problems of this car? And then most of the stuff pops up because most cars have a forum and a community around it, because, we find that, because we discard things so quickly in the 21st century, like after 5 years we're done, we don't care about it. There's still such a big heritage community that say, look, I'm going to keep the car forever. I still, despite me paying it off over finance, I love this car. It gave me so many memories, and I've got lots of friends who also do the same thing. They don't mind that it's paid off, but they keep it because it's such a special car. And that's when those topics come up. Hey, what are the common things? Or you meet someone who's got the same car and they say, oh yeah, look after this, look after that. But I always use the analogy of our clothes. It's something that we put on every single day. We know when our shoes are getting worn out, when it's starting to crack, when we need new shirts and jeans. Because it's, we know that it only lasts so long when we use it. But we don't apply that to a car, because a car runs in the same thing. It's got parts, it's got lubricants, it's got moving things in it. So if we take the same amount of care in our appearance to our cars, it's like what Rudolph said, we extend the life of it. And it just continuously works. And the more we take care of it,
Look after it,
it'll take
absolutely.
care of us. It'll get us from A to B. And we won't sit with a problem one day where, we don't care about our cars. We wake up, we go to work, turn the key, and all of a sudden there's a big bang or smoke. And we're like, I didn't know about this. But we ask ourselves, okay, was there a service that was skipped? And we see it in some of the cars that come in for trade-in. It's got like mismatch history. And then you're the person who wants to buy this car. And you say, I don't want to buy it because it's got a missed history because I don't know it's healthable.
Interesting. Now, Rudolph, WesBank is responsible financier of cars. How are we educating customers about all these other things that are being mentioned as part of the cost?
Well, Lebo, it's not just, I guess, the bank that's doing our part to educate. It's also the industry, the dealers, the OEMs that does their part in educating our customers. And sure, there's so much happening. I mean, we've not even spoken about the rise of electric cars. So there's a whole new dimension of cost that changes. So you're not going to have... you don't have fuel anymore.
Sure.
So
You have to have power for those as well.
Exactly, you have to have. But I
HCOM.
mean, the proliferation of the electric car is definitely here, and it's coming. There's green papers being written by government on how to put tax incentives in place for electric cars. So as an industry as a whole, I think we're all doing our part, as we are doing today, talking about the cost of motoring, and so the dealers and the OEMs are also doing their part to educate our customers.
Awesome.
And of course, the journalists. I think you guys are probably the biggest conduit for sharing valuable information and objective information with the customer.
If you are in a lift with a customer or somebody who's a first-time car buyer and you have to give them one piece of advice when they buy a car, what would that be, Matthew?
It's a very different one for me, but I'd always understand what their needs are. So what are they looking for? Is it someone who just wants to have a start and go? So they want to get in the car and just drive and get to where they want to be, or they're looking for class and sophistication. So if I've got the 2 minutes and say start and go, I'll give them a car that gives them convenience. So a car that just works. They don't have to think about it. So generally it'll be my top 3 things are, is the car automatic, does it have Apple CarPlay, and does it have a reverse camera? It's pretty much the 3 criteria that most people want in a car, because reversing, you want to see your surroundings. Connectivity, you want to stay plugged into the radio and whatever's on your mobile device, so CarPlay. And then the other features is automatic, because that convenience of it all. So that would be the prerequisites. And then from there, I'll dive deeper and they say, well, I'm a soccer mom, I'm a stay-at-home dad, I'm a corporate, I need to impress clients, I'm client-facing, I'm a student, I need something fuel efficient.
So essentially look at your lifestyle and your needs and make a decision from there.
Yeah, and then just say, okay, from there, I can now shorten your options and say, this is what I think. Because generally from that question, you'd get an idea of a budget range, and then immediately you'll say, okay, well, these are your options. This is what I think is great. This is what I recommend. Look in that area. Because you also don't want to force a decision on a consumer, because it's their hard-earned money. And the last thing you want is to force someone to buy something that you think is good, but then they get in it and it's a completely different experience.
Sure. Interesting. And yourself, Rudolph, what is that one piece of advice that you would give?
When it comes to budgeting for a car, one needs to of course sit down and actually write out your budget. Take your income, subtract all of your monthly expenses. When you see the portion that you have left of your salary to pay for your car, then we would always recommend that you take that, you split that in half. Half of that budget goes towards the payment for the car, and the other half of that what's left goes towards fuel price, insurance, maintenance, etc. And then, of course, you need to leave a little bit of room in your budget for changes in interest rates. As we've seen the last couple of years, rates have gone up quite a lot, and it impacts everything, all your credit purchases. So your home loan has gone up, your credit card has gone up, and of course your car loan would have gone up. So to leave ample space in your budget for rising interest rates, and then to be quite responsible in how you allocate the budget for buying the car.
Sure. Interesting nuggets. Thank you very much. There you have it. Very important, as Matthew said, that you need to be aware of your circumstances and your needs and take it from there. From a budget point of view, Rudolph mentioned, make enough room for the running costs, not only the monthly payments. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Really interesting nuggets, interesting time. I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm more impacted now if I have to, get another car.
Yeah.
And no, Rudolph, I'm not looking for a car. Thank you very much.
Thank
It's a
you,
pleasure.
Zach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. We hope that you found that useful. Now go and subscribe to be notified when our next informative episode is available.